Welcome back, questing champions. This is another issue or episode or whatever, because it's not on print, right? Yeah, it's
I was like,
audio.
are we suddenly a magazine?
We are suddenly a magazine. Yes, this is the 12th issue of For Azeroth. We still can't quite afford full color, so enjoy the black and white inside. The cover's for full color, though. Anyways, yes, this is the podcast about Warcraft with me, Garrett Weinzierl, and the person jumping right on the make fun of Garrett's gaff train, Jocelyn Moffett.
It's my job, Garrett. Like, literally my job.
It is. I mean, it is actually.
It really, literally is.
You don't know it, but there are job descriptions for hosts here on the podcast, and that is in Jocelyn's.
Must make fun of Garrett at least once within the first 10 minutes of each podcast. Otherwise, I am in breach of contract.
Oh, geez, wow. Okay, I need to reconsider those contracts. Is what I'm hearing. But it is it's a cool week to be a Warcraft fan right now. A lot of cool things happening in World of Warcraft. As I mentioned last week, I did miss the majority of Call of the Scarab. But, Jocelyn, I was happy to report when I logged in this morning that the Horde is currently in the lead.
Excellent. So it actually goes all the way until tomorrow, I believe. So it's I think it stops at like probably 3 a.m. or something. So technically, I guess midnight Pacific tonight. But anyways, Call of the Scarab has been kind of fun, but fell off quite quickly. I did it the first day. And then I went back again and did it the second day, and we couldn't even get a raid together to kill the world boss. So it probably took about 15 minutes of people like joining the group and dropping and joining and dropping, and us just like trying to cycle through all these people to kill the boss. It took forever. Thankfully, his health doesn't reset, so we were able to finally take him down. But man, oh man. It was so brutal. It fell off really quickly, and I think this was maybe slight design flaw in micro holidays by not giving any rewards for the micro holidays. There's literally no reason to do it. Like you get XP because I tried to do this. So I went and farmed because you could turn in meat as a repeatable quest. Mm-hmm. And so I was farming on my hunter to give meat to my shaman who was level 100 because I'm like, this is great. I don't really want to level all through all the zones again. This is my 4th character that I'll be leveling through from 100 to 110. I know the content. I don't want to do it all over. I'll just park her in front of the turn-in. I'll farm on my 110 hunter, and I'll just funnel meat to her, and she can just level up. Except for every turn-in was 20 meat, and it gave you 1,500 experience. So doing the math, I would have had to turn in like 160,000 pieces of meat.
That's a lot of meat.
Like, that's too much meat.
Jocelyn is opening a butcher shop that works on a massive, massive scale, apparently.
Yeah, so I mean, it is good for like it's okay for leveling because the mobs actually scale and stuff. Although I found it really difficult to kill a lot of the mobs in Silithus. It was really the leveling was then I also didn't really know what I was doing on my shaman, and my gear was all crappy. But yeah, I found it really difficult to actually kill the mobs. So I was like, it is actually faster for me to just level through Broken Isles. So I didn't have a lot of incentive to do it on, like, I went through and did it once on all of my Horde tunes just to, contribute as much as I could in the one day. But I didn't have a lot of incentive to keep doing it. And I think that's what happened to a lot of players. And so that was a little bit unfortunate. But, I mean, on the other side, I am also playing on Horde side, which is currently winning in North America. So, again, not a lot of incentive to do it because we were winning by a handy margin.
I think a decent portion, though, I will say, I think a decent portion of the disinterest is the timing. It is literally days after the release of a new raid.
That's true.
So the timing is a little rough, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure when the best timing would have been. I mean, clearly it's a holiday, right? So it's going to be this time every year. Mm-hmm. And they decided that this was the time it was going to be, and that's just the way to do it. And if we were trying to, for whatever reason, time it better, I'm not sure when. I get probably a little longer into 7.1.5, right? That would probably be the best time, but that's not how holidays work. There's going to be more of these coming down the pipeline at us, and they just need to get them rolling. So
Exactly. And well, I think because they did have world quests in Silithus, and you actually got new world quests, because I thought once you did them once, they were kind of gone. But they did refresh the next day because I had gone back in on my hunter again just to check and make sure the Horde was still winning. Gotta
yeah,
have your faction pride. Gotta make sure that things are happening the way they're supposed to happen. So I went back in, and the world quests had refreshed on the second day, so I went and did them again. And yeah, I feel like, I mean, I did it for Horde Pride, and obviously there are a lot of people who also did it for Horde Pride because we're winning, but I feel like they would have had more interest if they had attached artifact power or order resources or gold to those world quests. There was XP, and you could do the world quests as a low-level character, but yeah, I feel like the max level characters, which most people now have at least one max level character, the incentive just wasn't really there, right? Like you
Yeah.
got the Horde commendations and that was it, or the Alliance commendations and that was it. And yeah, I feel like if they tied even 15 gold to that world quest or something, people would have been like, oh hey, gold, sweet, yeah, I'll go do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, obviously, I think that would be the way to incentivize it more. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much incentivizing it really needs. At the same coin, like, look.
Well, it didn't on the first day, so maybe that's the thing. Is it was too long for a micro holiday, because I think if everyone had piled on one day like they did on the very first day, then it would have been really, really cool. But then when it kind of dragged out, like second and third day, like no one's doing it now. So
No,
I think that was.
I agree. I mean, I was happy personally because like I was at a wedding all weekend, so I'm like, cool. I can still like see it a little bit. But on the other side of that coin, there is no one out there in Silithus. It looks like old school Silithus, and that I mean nobody is there.
Exactly, which is not the experience, because that's what they're saying the reward for the micro holidays is, right? Is the experience. So I had the experience in my first day of a whole bunch of Horde players being there, of everybody being flagged up, but unfortunately our server is kind of Horde heavy, so there wasn't actually anyone, because I was totally flagged up. I was ready to go and like just kill those Alliance or trying to run their dust back to their base. I was all ready to go, and there was nobody there. It was totally Horde dominated on our server. So yeah, I just kind of did my dust running and then went and killed my stuff, and then got into raids. But it was cool because there were other like guildies and stuff there, and we were all like waving and hailing each other, and it was a lot of fun. And if you didn't log in that first day, I don't think you got that same experience, because like I mentioned, we couldn't even get a raid group together in Group Finder to kill the raid boss yesterday. So
yeah, well, I think these are all issues that could be tuned if it's something that they feel they want to or care enough to tune. I mean, I think it's easy to be like, well, we're just going to make it one day. Yeah, you might miss out on it, but honestly, you're not going to get the experience otherwise.
Exactly, yeah.
So, but we'll see. I don't know. I could see this being something that would have been really popular back if we were, in the second year of Draenor when nothing was going on.
Yes.
But I don't want to live in that World of Warcraft, because something being better because the rest of the game is boring is not a win in my book. So
yes.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it's cool. At the end of the day, it's whatever. It's about what I expected it to be, which was really neat at first, and then everyone remembers, oh, hey, this vanilla content isn't all that fun to do. So
yeah, and I did have a good time, and I mean, like I said, the Horde is winning, so that makes me happy too. And
yep, go Horde.
Yeah, so
for the Horde.
I'm interested to see what they do with these micro holidays going forward, and if we will actually see some changes after the first kind of year is done and we've seen them all. If then they go, okay, yeah, this needs a bit of a revamp. It wasn't as successful as we thought it was going to be. But
yeah, that
being said, I think we were up at like 22 last time I looked. It was like 22 or 23 million things done.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like there was definite participation there, right? So
absolutely.
It's not like it was the Alliance had 100 and the Horde had 110, and it was just two dudes, one on each faction, running back and forth like, nope, I can run faster than you, I'm a druid, screw you, travel form, whoosh.
That's what it felt like when I logged on this morning. It was just me alone, just running geyser smoke. Like, okay, I'm just all right, well, there's a scorpion. Oh, it didn't scale, so it just dies. Okay, let's just keep running. All right, this is boring. I'm going to go write show notes. Anyways, I'll tell you, what is more successful, Jocelyn? The Get Your Crit Together raid.
Yes. Damn, we kicked ass.
We did a good job. We did a damn good job. So, hey, I'm very lucky. I've been sitting in with your raid. Get your crit together, Jocelyn, in my Frosty K in Blood DK gear, trying his damnedest to damage away and beat on things with what feels like wiffle ball bats at times. I felt very fortunate to be a part of the raid on last Tuesday night, the opening night of the Nighthold, which is something I haven't done. I haven't been in a raid on opening night since Lich King. So
Nice.
This is really cool for me. I really appreciated being given a slot. And we, within what we only raided for like 2.5 hours, right?
Actually, under 2.
Under 2. Okay, so in under 2 hours, we took down the first 3 bosses. And Chronomatic Anomaly, we one-shot that mother effer. So, suck it,
we like
dude.
four-shotted the trash, but then we one-shot the
Oh,
actual boss.
dude, the trash before Chronomatic Anomaly is so much harder than the actual boss.
Agreed.
It's just
Agreed.
stupid. It didn't help that I don't like. Everyone's like, "Yeah, I'm studied up for the boss." I don't think anyone studied up on the trash because that trash kicked
not
our
at all.
ass. Oh geez, but yeah, I'm really enjoying the Nighthold so far. That is a gorgeous flippin' raid. It's like, hey,
And we're not even in the cool part yet, dude.
I know, but being like when we got to the Chronomatic Anomaly, and I'm just like, oh man, this is a cool set piece, and I'm gonna admit this now. While everyone was like figuring it out, I had already watched the video, so I opened up a second monitor, and what I did was look up the lore, and I'm like, well, what is this room? It's a cool set piece. Oh my god, it's the base of the Nightwell.
Yep.
Yeah, I geeked out a little bit. It was very cool. It gave me some ICC kind of like chills because, that's how ICC opened. Although Chronomatic Anomaly is the second boss, but the first boss in ICC was Marogar, who was at the base of the spire, which was really cool.
Yes, and I usually raid with my little mini Morogar dude. He's called Bone Shard, and then he just runs around and goes Bone Storm.
That's
the whole
what
raid at random times, and people think that he's actually like a bad guy doing damage, which just makes me laugh. Everyone's like, "Wait, what is that? Who cast Bone Storm? What is this?"
Yeah, I just get flashbacks, man. I just get like terror flashbacks to my raid's vent back in the day. It's just like, run! What are you doing? Don't stand in the Bone Storm! Oh shit! I got hit by an ice spike. I'm gonna die.
But yeah, so we got all 3 of the first bosses down, which was really, really cool. Scorpiron took us a couple of tries, but once you get the mechanics, and that's the thing, like I find that these 3 bosses specifically, they're not really DPS checks at all. They're very, very, very mechanically based. Like they have enrage timers, but if you're kind of like doing a base of 200k, like it's really not a problem to get them down. It's just basically like you have to not stand in places when abilities are going off. And I think that that's really, really cool mechanically for all of them. And the third boss, Trilliax, is probably my favorite. And I've seen a lot of people who have said the same thing. We actually got, as part of our, like asking who your favorite WoW character are, we actually got a submission that said like, this boss is my favorite WoW character. I was like, really? That's awesome. But he's this like kind of malfunctioning multiple personality like servant bot thing. Like you see them walking around, I can't remember what they're called up in like in the city of Suramar, but they're kind of like those 4-legged robot looking dudes.
They're like they're constructs, more or less.
Yeah, they're constructs. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what they're actually called up in Suramar, and I can't for the life of me now. But so basically, he's this construct guy, and he like freaks out when you make a mess. So there's like slime all over the floor, and then there's scrubber bots that come, and there's cake, and there's feast, and it's just, man, it is the most fun I've had in a boss in a long time.
For me, there aren't as many Star Wars references in this show because while Jocelyn, you enjoy the films, it doesn't have the same reverence for you as it does for me because I grew up watching it. You kind of came into Star Wars later in life. But I'm going to make one now. Trilliax is as if C-3PO just went off the rails, and that makes me so happy. Also, there's cake. One of the main mechanics, probably the main mechanic of this fight, is cake.
is you have to eat the cake, yeah.
Yeah,
which is super freaking fun. So, yeah, we got all 3 bosses down, and Furt Raid, which is my other raid team, which is my more casual raid team, actually got down the first 2 bosses. So, it was a good week of raiding, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was really, really happy. I'm excited. We're going to extend the lockout, so I'm excited to see the next bosses. And I think we did extraordinarily well with Get Your Crit Together, just with our, amount of time. I think we did like 3 pulls on the first boss, 1 pull on the second boss, and then probably 4 pulls on the third boss. So probably about 8 altogether in under 2 hours to get the 3 down.
I was very happy with it.
I was really, really happy too, because we hadn't even watched videos for a couple of them because there were no videos. It was day 1 of the raid. So yeah, I was really happy with our ability to kind of figure out strats and figure out what worked for us, and given our comp and everything else, and then actually getting the bosses down. I think, yeah, we did a great job. So I'm very proud of us. Yay, go raid team! And Nighthold is amazing.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and it was nice to actually get some gear upgrades, and I had made sure my loot specialization was in Frost, so my damage is actually becoming competent now. It's nice. It's a good feeling.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because you haven't been raiding this expansion really, so
nope. We've just been doing Mythics and Karazhan.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I've had my loot spec for Blood, and I've been putting most of my points into my Blood artifact, but now I've started splitting my time between the two, my Frost artifact and my Blood artifact, and I've almost got my Frost artifact caught up to my Blood artifact.
Nice. So. Yeah, I found once you hit Artifact Knowledge 25, it's pretty easy to get your artifacts caught up, and it's super fun the first time you do a world quest when you have your artifact knowledge up really high on a tune. So I bought the 20 artifact knowledge for my mage, so it's like she was getting 10 and 20 artifact power at a time, and then all of a sudden she gets 20k, and it's just ding 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 ding, and then you go into your artifact and you're like, I want all the things. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, I dig it. I'm really, really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to getting back in there tomorrow night. So let's continue crushing it. Let's do it.
Sounds like a plan.
But hey, as far as what's new in the World of Warcraft, 7.2 is on the PTR. And we haven't talked about 7.2 since I think we launched this show and did our kind of post BlizzCon chat. So let's recap for folks out there all of the things that we're getting in 7.2.
Yeah, we've spent so much time talking about 715, and 715, as much as we got, is a mini patch.
Yeah.
7.2 is a mind-blowing amount of content. It's just there's so much to do, so much is coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first off, we're returning to the Broken Shore. They basically kind of pitch this at BlizzCon. It's this is the climax of the class order hall story. Whatever class you're a part of, it's all culminating here. So the emphasis is on our orders are going to succeed where our factions failed. So we're returning to the Broken Shore to build a Legion Fall base together. So that sounds really cool. And I guess the main hub in this zone is going to be filled with our personal champions.
Yeah, which is actually really cool. If you actually go to the article over on Wowhead, they have 2 screenshots side by side. I believe one was from a monk and one was from a Death Knight. And basically, one view from the Death Knight view has all your Death Knight champions, and then the other view, if you're a monk, has all your monk champions. They're standing in the exact same places, and it's just reskinned depending on how you're viewing the area. So it looks so freaking cool, and I love that it's just so personal to you and your experience and your order hall. It's going to be so neat.
Now, my one question is, do I see the monks running around, or do I only see the Death Knights running around?
No, you only see Death Knights.
Oh, okay. Well, that's still better than garrisons. I would like to see just everyone just hanging, chilling.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you actually get to see other players or if it's going to be phased so you only see other Death Knight players, but basically it's going to be another Order Hall location, and everybody is in the same place. So I'm just not sure about all the phasing and instancing and stuff, but at least the NPCs are all skinned for whatever class you are.
Yeah. And like I said, better than garrisons. better than garrisons.
Because it's not completely you alone. It's you with your class. So it's not necessarily Garrisons 2.5, as Chad is currently saying, thanks, Tom, but it is, I guess, Order Hall 2.0.
Yeah. All right, I can get behind that. I can get into that. Legion assaults are returning. This is going to be very similar to the pre-expansion event, but they are now going to be happening randomly around the Broken Isles. And we're also getting a 3-man scenario where we're going to be taking the fight to I call them the damn Legion spaceships flying around. The Legion Star Destroyers, if you will.
Yeah, so the whole idea of Legion Assaults I love, because I thought the pre-expansion event was super freaking cool. And I liked the idea where you had to go back to places you may not have been for a while. So, I mean, I kind of hope that they also incorporate some on Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms as well again. But I think, obviously, they're going to focus on the Broken Isles, but I can always hope that, they'll pull us back to the other continents at some point. But it does make sense that the Legion would be focusing their attack where, the main force of Azeroth is. Like, not a lot of people are left in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, so I guess.
Yeah.
But I still think it'd be cool.
Flying is coming. Broken Isles Pathfinder Part 2 achievement is coming, which means coming with it is account-wide flying once you complete it. Again, if you haven't been working on part 1, like me, I've been a little slacky on that regards. I've been working on it though, getting all those factions to Revered, and apparently I still need to ungray out a couple corners of the map somewhere. I need to figure out what I'm missing.
Oh yeah,
Explorer achievement.
One of them, if you're missing High Mountain, one of them is probably the Hunter Order Hall. You have to kind of go up a path, and then you get a warning saying that this area is only for hunters. And then if you have to kind of keep going until they almost kick you out, and then it'll ding that you've discovered it, and then you can run back away again. But yeah, the Hunter Order Hall is one of the things you have to discover in High Mountain. So if that might be what's holding you back.
Bunch of jerks. People who play hunters are jerks.
Aww.
My original main was a hunter.
But the one thing about Pathfinder Part 2 is that you're actually going to need to be exalted, and so I imagine you're probably going to have to be exalted with all the factions, but it's going to include the new faction, which is the Armies of Legionfall, so you're going to have to be exalted with them before you can get your Pathfinder Part 2, which is very similar to having to be exalted with the Tanan Jungle factions.
Right.
In Draenor.
Yep. Obviously,
except that this will probably be fun.
Yeah. Obviously, we're getting a new raid. We're getting the Tomb of Sargeras. I mean, right now we're raiding Nighthold, and the whole reason we are doing that, which I feel the need to remind everyone, because no one thinks about the lore implications of what they're doing in World of Warcraft, we are raiding it to get the 5th and final pillar of creation, the Eye of Amenthal, which means next patch we will be taking all 5 pillars into the tomb, into the former Temple of Elune, to seal the portal through which the Legion is pouring through. That's the whole reason we're doing this.
That and, to kick Elisande in the shins, because she deserves it, 'cause she's a big jerk.
Well, yes, yes. Jocelyn really, really has it out for Elisande.
I do. The Waning Crescent needs to be avenged. But yeah, so this is our final pillar of creation. Like we talked about in our lore segment last week, they used the 5th pillar of creation, the Eye of Amenthal, to actually create the Nightwell. So we need to go in and essentially steal it back. And it's totally okay. We're not going to actually kill the Nightborn, because we have our super fantastic, awesome magic tree that's going to cure them. So it's not like we're murdering a whole race of people here, guys. The elves will be okay. They just have to eat some fruit.
Yeah, magic tree. It's gonna be about a magic tree.
You dork.
I know I am. I'm doing it. I don't know if you realize this, Jocelyn, but we're currently recording a podcast about Warcraft. We're both dorks.
True.
I'm
That's
just
true.
slightly dorkier. Until something about a unicorn comes up, and then your dork flag will fly.
So true. Sparkle.
Well, in addition to a raid, and I would argue more surprising than a raid, is we're getting a patch dungeon. We're getting a patch dungeon in 7.2. I love these. It was one of my favorite things about Wrath of the Lich King, and we are getting the Cathedral of Eternal Night when 7.2 launches. The Tomb of Sargeras will be sending us down into the former Temple of Elune. The Cathedral of Eternal Night will have us scaling the giant spire, so we're going up as opposed to down. And you'll actually be able to look down into the raid, at least the beginning portions of the raid, as we're going up the spire.
Yeah, I love how they're tying all this together because, I mean, realistically, they could have just made it another wing of the raid. So I love that they said, you know what? No, we're actually going to just make this a dungeon. And it's great because then people who aren't necessarily on raid teams or don't like to LFR can still feel like they're participating in the main storyline. They're not being, thrown over to the side. Like, you're literally like, okay, we're going to go up the spire and we're going to take on the guys up here. And you, big main assault group, you go down and you take on the raid, and it feels very strategic and like you're actually part of something. So I love that they did this.
I agree. The next bit of thing I will have to pause for Jocelyn squeeze after mentioning again. PvP brawls are coming in 7.2. that did not disappoint. So if you don't remember, this is going to be throw balance to the wind in forms of PvP. We're getting all kinds of ridiculous changes to PvP battlegrounds and scenarios that we've come to know and love. We're getting South Shore versus Torn Mill. We're getting instant Cap Warsong Gulch. We're getting 15 versus 15 arena. I'm personally kind of excited for that one. It just sounds
I'm so excited for that one.
Insane. Just totally insane. We're getting gravity laps, which is going to the gravity the gravity will not be what we are used to in World of Warcraft. We're getting a winter-themed Arathi Basin, which looks great. Not to mention there's actually lower visibility, and we can just walk over the water because it's all iced over. Everyone's a Death Knight or Shaman. And Eye of the Horn, which means mounted ram fights. Mounted ram fights, Jocelyn.
On the map that you can get knocked off of and you can fall into the nether. This is so good.
Yep.
So I don't know, Garrett, have you done the PvP world quest where you actually have to go and mount the animals and then you do mounted combat?
Nope.
It's in Stormheim.
I have not.
Man, dude,
I have not.
It's so fun. So yeah, you can mount the rams, which then do a knockback. You can mount the wolves, which have a pounce, or you can mount the bears, which are just super duper beefy. And it's so freaking fun. And it's one of those fill up a progress bar to 100%. You can either dominate the animals or kill other players, and it's free for all. And it's actually the only free-for-all one that I really like, because there's also the Murloc Strand free-for-all and the arenas where you actually go down into an arena and PvP. It's the only free-for-all one I actually like because you have the ability, you have a little bit more escape, because I always go for the wolf mount because the pounce. And so you have a little bit more escape. You have the option of going for PvE people if there's somebody who's just way super stronger than you in PvP. So it doesn't kind of force you to go against people that are above your league, because there's obviously, it's a world quest, so there's no matchmaking or anything. So it's my favorite. But have I mentioned lately that I'm really not a fan of free for all PvP? Because I'm not a fan. Especially as a healer, I like faction-specific PvP, because then I can do my freaking job. If everyone's against me, then I just stand there going, heal, 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 heal. Jocelyn, feel better. Have a Band-Aid. It's no good.
It's all okay, Joss. It's all going to be okay. We'll always have battlegrounds.
But anyways, yeah, so I'm very excited about this. I'm very, very excited about this.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time, it looks like. I'm looking forward to it as well. We're also getting artifact updates. We're getting a continuation of the artifact campaign, which will be unlocked upon maxing out our artifact, which means I think I need to buckle down and focus on one of the specs. I think it's
actually not that difficult at this point.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing your world quests, then because there's a lot of world quests now for the Warden specifically that will often reward over 100k. So you do 10 of those, and that's your 35th artifact trait, right? So.
Yep. Personal question, Jocelyn, since you run with me in both regards. we've got the Monday stream where we do 5-man content with our, our close podcast buddies, Kyle, Kristen, Dills. But now I'm raiding with you Tuesday nights and doing damage. I tank on Mondays. What should I focus on? Because I'm in a raid now. That's harder content. That's going to yield me the best stuff. I feel like I should be buckling down on my frost gear and frost spec.
I feel like anything I say right now is just going to be super selfish because obviously I'm going to say, dude, level up your frost because you need to up that raid damage. Like, what are you doing with your life?
That's where I am at too. And my tanking seems to be just kind of nailing it right now for where we're at.
Exactly.
I think I'm at a comfortable level in my tanking abilities. So yeah, I think it's time to double down on putting those artifact points into my my shards of Frostmourne. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Like the point of the raid group that we put together, like normal is fine. We want to go through, clear it, see the content. But our end goal for this raid team is to be a heroic raid team. So we're kind of like starting from scratch. So having to push ourselves up, but we won't be doing normal level content for long. So that's where you need to start kind of pushing the envelope, I think, if you want to keep raiding. I'm not saying I'll kick you out, but dude, I'll totally kick you out. Like, come on.
Good. I want to hear that. I don't like raids that don't kick people out. Be a jerk. Be bloodthirsty. Be cutthroat.
Oh, dude, I'm going to call you out. You've got like 2 more weeks of like nice Jocelyn who's just going to be like, well, he needs some time, blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, boom, hammer down.
Hammer down. Hey, I pulled ahead of a Hakito in a couple fights last week. I think I pulled my weight okay. That being said, when Hakito isn't dead from eating too much cake, he does very impressive numbers as a Death Knight. He is my my level to beat. So, but that's looking cool. We're also getting new artifact appearances and also new world quests coming to the Broken Shore, which I'm bring it on. I'm so burnt out on the current swath of world quests. My God.
Yeah, and it gets even, I think, basically the mechanic of world quests has basically ruined leveling for me because as you level through, the first time it's really cool because the content is all fresh and new, and then when you get your brand spanking new 110, you know how to do all the world quests because they were things you encountered in leveling. But then once you hit like, what are we now, 3-4 months into the expansion, and I'm on 110 number 3, and I'm starting to do the world quests, and then I'm not only doing all the world quests that I did in leveling, but I'm doing them on multiple characters the same day, and I'm getting really burnt out on even the hilariously punny Aw Nuts quest.
I do love squirrels. I'm just gonna put that out there. I'm not sure how helpful that information is, but I do love squirrels. But yes, yeah, no,
and then so like as each new character, like leveling my mage was really painful, and now I have to level my shaman, and I'm just like, I've already done this content. Like, I don't even know how many times I've done this quest now. Like, it's probably been in some cases like over 50 times between the leveling experience and then the world quest experience. I'm just like, oh my God, okay, I know these dudes behind this wall in Stormheim are real bad and you don't like them, dragon, and I have to ride you again, which was really freaking cool the first time, but now it's a little bit played out. So I think as awesome as it is, and where I really think that Legion nailed the experience, it's not really alt-friendly, and I think that they need to start taking a look at that, especially in 7.2. And so I'm glad that we're getting new world quests because I need a new rotation. I need them to mix it up a little bit. So the Falcosaur quests and the Helia quests have helped with that because then at least there's a little bit more variety. So we just need to continue seeing them pushing out new content and making alt leveling faster and easier. So
yeah.
Have they said anything about nerfing or squishing the XP of levels?
I looked for that. I
anything.
couldn't find any information on that. I mean, usually that comes I feel like usually that comes after like kind of the final big event happens, like the last big patch or whatever, because didn't it come after?
Well, I know, but then I mean,
Hellfire Citadel in Legion or in Draenor? I think that's when they did the XP squish, was after Hellfire Citadel released.
I can't remember. I know in Pandaria it was like super soon because they squished the XP before Garrosh destroyed the Veil.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
feel... Then yeah, I'm not sure, but I haven't heard anything. I have been looking for it because I've been getting that alt itch. but I really don't want to level again.
No, and even then, like with the rested XP bonuses and stuff, I think I only needed to complete 3 zones main storylines. Like I don't even think I touched Stormheim, so I mean it's fast-ish. It's just that, like I said, I'm just getting burnt out because of World Quest. So
Yep.
I think that the squish it would be welcome anytime, but yeah, I feel like we're at the point now where if we were kind of going into the like 7.2, 7.3, like I feel like we would have been squished before 7.2 in a previous expansion, but maybe I'm just crazy.
Who knows? Well, all in all, I think everything's fine. But it's just personally, I'd like to level a Clothy. I want to get a spellcaster up in the mix.
I so wish that like gifting characters was a thing, because I have no interest in playing my mage whatsoever. I wish I could just be like, here, Garrett, have a 110 mage. Ta-da!
That would be so nice. I just want to be Kael'thas. Is that such a bad thing?
Well, I guess in that case, then you would have to gender change her.
Well, you know.
She's a she, but
I wouldn't mind being a pretty lady mage. I mean, I've been known to rock the female tunes in the past. So, anyways, that's basically the recap for 7.2. That's mostly everything. We haven't covered everything. I mean, there's still like class mounts and more stuff coming, but that's the gist of the things to get excited about in 7.2. And a lot of this you can go and test right now on the PTR, which I am not going to do because I don't like burning myself out on content before it's live in the game.
Yeah, I had actually tweeted and said that there's going to be a lot more content than there was on Timeless Isle, that the initial build of 7.2 that's currently on the PTR is very like sandboxy. They're just kind of testing out a lot of their systems. So it's not like the main content, not the questing, it's very, this is our area, this is our first build, this is stuff that we're toying with. So if you are going to play on the PTR right now, it's not the final kind of system. It's not the final patch by any means. So keep that in mind, though. It is like Timeless Isle in that it's like a big open quest, and there's a questing area, and there's lots of not quests, rares to do, and lots of like treasures to find and all that kind of stuff. Like that kind of stuff is there, but it's empty, it's sandboxy. So go in, fool around, play, have fun, but know that there's a lot more content to come, and it's going to be a lot more content than the Timeless Isle was. So, which Indeed. I love Timeless Isle. I spent a lot of time there in Pandaria. So
yeah, it was cool. I took a break in Pandaria, and when I came back, Timeless Isle was kind of in full swing, and I was like, oh, this is sweet. It was a good time to come back. Also going on right now is the Lunar Festival. It has returned. It's running from the 21st through the 4th. It's mostly about honoring old dead people. So yep. go and honor those old dead people.
So basically, when you go around and honor the elders in Azeroth, you get coins of ancestry, which help you buy stuff. And there's actually some, if you are looking to level alts, there are some useful items. You can get heirloom upgrade tokens for coins of ancestry. I think one of them costs 50 and one of them costs 75 to get it all the way up to, I believe, level 100. So basically to kind of fast track you up to current content. So there are some good things that come out of this holiday, some useful tools. And there's also 3 new toys this year. There is the dragon head costume, the dragon body costume, and the dragon tail costume. So you can collect these toys and then make a giant dragon with your friends.
So you have to run around together, and someone's the head, someone's the middle, and someone's the butt?
Yep.
Oh, man, I want to be the butt. I want to be dragon butt. Guess what? Dragon butt. Okay. Let's enjoy the Lunar Festival, and more so enjoy being a dragon butt, everyone, in World of Warcraft. It is time, Jocelyn, to get our lore on, and since we made so many references to him, it is time to set our gaze, set our focus on OG Gul'dan. This is the original Gul'dan. This is before Back to the Future, Warlords of Draenor, too many orc structures all the time. This is the original Gul'dan that has we've been pretty much having to deal with his bullshit for a really long time. We're gonna learn you. We're gonna learn you some Gul'dan here, and I'm gonna start this off by saying, if you haven't already, Jocelyn and I have already gone so far out of our way, I feel, on past episodes to talk about how kind of awesome we think the animated shorts that Blizzard puts out before their expansions are. But if you haven't seen it, go and watch the Harbinger shorts. This is the Harbinger series that came out just before Legion launched. They have one. It's a short just about Gul'dan's kind of his coming of age story, basically, like how he became the evil, just, green ball of horrid that he is. That's what it covers, and it's freaking gorgeously painted. So go and check that out. But we're going to talk about a lot of what happened in that right here.
Exactly. So the thing is, the Harbinger's video is super freaking cool, but it definitely kind of retcons his origin story a little bit. So in the origin story that we get through Rise of the Horde, which is probably my favorite Warcraft book. I've mentioned it before. It's written by Christy Golden. It is phenomenal, and it tells the story of Durotan and Gul'dan and Ner'zhul and the whole story of the orcs, as well as some Prophet Velen stuff, and that's probably where I've previously mentioned this novel. But his origin story in Rise of the Horde is very, very, very different from the Harbinger short. In the Harbinger short, he was basically like always evil. In Rise of the Horde, he was always power hungry and over time became evil. But in the Harbinger's video, man, he's just straight up evil. So at first I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay. I even texted you this morning, Garrett, and said, I got to tweak the lore a little bit, because I was like, okay, maybe the Harbinger video is actually like new Gul'dan, but the problem with that thinking is that, that Gul'dan, like, he has his one storyline up until the point where Garrosh intervenes, and then this kind of timeline split, right? So he would still have the same origin story. So I'm just calling this a full-on retcon. But so basically in the original origin story in Rise of the Horde, Gul'dan is a very gifted shaman, and then so is sent to be the apprentice of Ner'zhul, who is like the most powerful shaman of all of the orcs, and he's kind of their head spiritual leader, and that's his original origin story. But in the Harbinger's video, Gul'dan, obviously born on Draenor, was ostracized by his tribe because he was smaller and weaker than an orc should be, which kind of makes sense if you know anything about orc culture. They are very kind of warrior heavy. Even their shamans are very like large, powerful, manly man orcs or manly woman orcs.
Yeah, it's basically the story of Hiccup and How to Train Your Dragon if things got really dark really fast.
Fair enough. So basically what happened was he was beaten by all of his tribe members and then banished from the tribe because the shaman of his tribe intervened to save his life and basically said, like, don't kill him, exile him. So he was exiled from his tribe, and he traveled to the throne of the elements, hoping that the elemental spirits would help him, but they recoiled from him and abandoned him as well. So with his tribe gone and the influence of the elements gone, he was able to hear voices whispering to him that offered him power in return for him being their instrument of fury. So Gul'dan accepted and returned to his village, burned it and its inhabitants to the ground using the infamous fell magics.
Ooh.
Dun dun dun. This is when things start to get real green.
Yeah, and not like trees are growing and flowers are blooming kind of green.
Yeah. So yeah, this is where, like, we're kind of in chat room saying that the Harbinger video is for new Gul'dan. So, I mean, and again, like, it's just kind of fuzzy because of all the timeline stuff. But from here on out, we are talking 100% for sure original Gul'dan story. So Gul'dan becomes the apprentice of Ner'zhul, as I mentioned, who was the chieftain of the Shadowmoon clan. Ner'zhul had been corrupted by the influence of Kil'jaeden, who, if you guys remember from our earlier episode about Prophet Velen, Kil'jaeden is one of the Eredar, and he is actually called the Deceiver. So he came to Ner'zhul. Ner'zhul was not always evil. He was, like, actually legitimately not evil. But Kil'jaeden came to him in the form of, like, basically a god-like being of light. And so Ner'zhul was like, clearly I'm doing what this guy said. And he basically came in and said, the Draenei are evil. We have to eradicate them, bloody, bloody, blah. So it wasn't the promise of power that Gul'dan got. Ner'zhul was actually like tricked, basically. So what Ner'zhul did, under the influence of Kil'jaeden, was rally all of the separate orc clans into the first horde, and he set them on the Draenei. So basically, as the orcs are attacking the Draenei, Ner'zhul began to notice that the shamans couldn't call upon the power of the elements anymore. And he realized he went to Oshtengun and spoke to the ancestors and realized that he had been deceived by Kil'jaeden. So he was going to go back and attempt to get out of the deal. But Gul'dan had actually witnessed his visions at the temple, so Gul'dan totally betrays him and goes running to Kil'jaeden and says, "Oh, dude, he knows." And so Gul'dan was made the master of the orcs. Instead, he became the first warlock, so he completely forsaken, said, "Screw you, elements," and went for Fel instead, and became the first warlock. And so basically he then began reshaping the horde from the shamanistic tribes that they had been into just one big group of bloodthirsty warriors, which was the first horde. So this is kind of when we're getting close to the whole invasion of Azeroth thing. The orcs are this gigantic force now, and Gul'dan needs to control them somehow, so he forms the Shadow Council. And so basically they influenced and directed all aspects of orc society. And so he also created a new clan called the Storm Reavers, who were loyal straight to him. He was their clan chieftain. So Gul'dan, his new clan, and the Shadow Council basically wanted to seal their pact with Kil'jaeden. And so they gathered all of the orc clans together, and you guys might remember this from the Warlords of Draenor cinematic when Garrosh intervenes, but Gul'dan offers the blood of Manaroth to all of the clan leaders, which I've got to say, dude, that cinematic got me so excited for Draenor. And then the whole expansion was such a letdown.
It was not my jam either, so I don't want to just dogpile on. I don't want to come back to our continual dogpile of, in retrospect, Draenor is the worst expansion, in my opinion, in the history of World of Warcraft. But, yeah, it stands. It stands!
But the actual drinking of the blood of Manaroth in either form, the original timeline form or the cinematic from Draenor, just that whole scene of all of the orcs gathered together and the drinking of the blood of Manaroth is so powerful. And basically,
it's one of the that's like one of those kind of poster child scenarios, I think, that creates fantasy fans, right? Like that's something that's so it's so larger than like a lot of the things that have happened in Warcraft mythos. It's just you're having all of these huge players around, and it's one of the things you point to. It's something that shows up like on a Warcraft timeline. That's how big this event is. And it was so cool to see it shown in such high fidelity in the Warlords of Draenor cinematic. Even though we then once Garrosh came in, that we saw an altered ending to what happened, in which the orcs did not drink the blood of Manaroth. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, like, how can you not watch that and just not be like, oh my God, Warcraft is one of the coolest things ever? It's just covered, it's oozing with cool, and in this case, cool is green evil blood.
Yes. So speaking of the blood of Manaroth is what curses the orcs and turns them green and makes them even more bloodthirsty, evil, and powerful, and basically enslaves them to Kil'jaeden and Sargeras and the Burning Legion. So the new horde under Gul'dan's leadership nearly eradicates the Draenei on Draenor, which is, as we talked about, and there's going to be a lot of crossover in this early story with the Prophet Velen episode, but basically this is the point where they attack Shattrath, and the Draenei basically have to go into hiding. Those who survive, which there are not very many of them, go into hiding, and so then Prophet Velen escapes later on. But this is the point in the timeline where there's basically like no more Draenei. There's Prophet Velen and his very few followers who escaped, and that's it. So the Draenei were defeated, And basically, the orcs just couldn't even find them. They went very deep into hiding, so they no longer had an enemy to fight. And so Gul'dan was actually contacted by Medivh, who offered power unimaginable if Gul'dan would use his horde to help conquer Azeroth. So Gul'dan agreed, obviously, power hungry. And with the help of the Shadow Council, they built and opened the dark portal connecting the two worlds. So the orcs' use of the fell magic, I don't know if you guys remember from the movie, it's basically the same idea. You're extracting the life force from things in order to create power yourself. So they had basically been extracting the life force of Draenor in order to fuel their magics. So they no longer had, like, they were these shamanistic tribes, and they were kind of like, they used the land to hunt and fish and all the rest of it. And there was basically no life left on the planet. That's why Hellfire Citadel is what it is on Draenor. Or sorry, in Outland. And so basically siphoning all the life from the planet made it so they couldn't live there anymore. So the orcs were growing restless. They had nothing to eat, nothing to kill. So they were just like, all right, let's go to Azeroth. Easy sell.
Yeah. And thus the first war began.
Yes. And so I think... Oh, I guess we talked a little bit about the wars with our talk about Turalyon and Illyria. We talked about it from the human perspective.
Yes,
not
yes.
not necessarily the orc perspective.
Specifically how Turalyon comes into play against Orgrim.
Yes. So Blackhand was elected war chief, but was really a pawn of Gul'dan. So even though, like, Gul'dan was like the head, but he was very sneaky about it. So he said, "Oh yeah, we should all follow Blackhand," but secretly Blackhand was very, very easy to control in terms of Gul'dan and the Shadow Council.
He was just a puppet, basically.
Exactly.
It was like this illusion of democracy, basically.
So Blackhand led the rampage across Azeroth and ended with the siege of Stormwind. And as the siege began, Gul'dan became aware of a raiding party that was heading to Karazhan because the humans had found out that Medivh was responsible for the orc invasion. So Gul'dan projected himself into Medivh's mind because he was searching for the location of the power that Medivh had promised him. So while he was still in Medivh's mind, Medivh was actually slain by I guess it was Khadgar, and then it depends on which part of the lore you're talking about as to who was with Khadgar when Medivh was slain. But basically, Medivh was slain, Khadgar was there, and since Gul'dan's mind was actually in Medivh's body at the time, Gul'dan himself fell into a coma. There's actually a surprising number of comas in World of Warcraft lore.
Yeah, especially the early days,
realize,
right?
Yeah.
Like the early days of Warcraft. And by the way, none of this stuff happened in the movie.
No, none of this is from the movie.
No. During this in the movie, I believe Gul'dan takes his shirt off and shows that he's like hobo ripped and is having a Makara throwdown.
Yes, exactly. But so basically, without Gul'dan's support, because obviously coma, Blackhand was defeated in single combat by Orgrim Doomhammer, who we mentioned.
I'm sorry. Obviously, coma is the best thing you've said all day.
So Orgrim Doomhammer, after defeating Blackhand, was made the new war chief of the Horde. So, learning of his treachery, Orgrim slaughtered all of Gul'dan's warlocks and the majority of the Shadow Council, because basically he became war chief, realized all the stuff with all the demons, and basically went, okay, well, what?
Yeah.
Because if you remember, Orgrim was actually very, very good friends with Durotan, who is Thrall's father. And at some point, we will do a Thrall episode, and we will talk all about Thrall's backstory and Durotan and Orgrim. But basically, Orgrim just slaughtered everyone who had anything to do with Gul'dan, and basically just took over and tried to lead the orcs in a more honorable way, although still not the peaceful tribes that they once were.
No.
So that was the end of the first war. And the second war began basically when Gul'dan awoke from his coma, and he only had his apprentice Cho'Gall, who, if you guys play Heroes, you know is a giant ogre mage. He's actually the first ogre mage. And his clan, the Twilight's Hammer, they were basically his only allies because Orgrim had killed everybody else. Orgrim, in the end, ended up sparing Gul'dan's life against his better judgment in exchange for information about Blackhand's followers, specifically his sons, Rend and Maim. Coolest names ever.
Yeah, Blackhand really, really bestowing a sense of soft care and lovingness on his children.
Exactly.
Yep.
So Gul'dan warned Ogrim of a coup that the Blackhands are planning with the raider faction of orcs. So basically there were bands of raiders who would go to human towns and basically raid, destroy, and that was what Blackhand and his sons had been doing as part of the war effort. So all of these raiders were very loyal to Blackhand. So when Ogrim killed him, they kind of started plotting the coup and their revenge, led by his sons. So Ogrim basically disbanded all the raiding parties and separated them into groups in other orc regiments to prevent the coup. So that was all due to Gul'dan and the information he provided, even though he had no idea because, again, coma, he was basically just feeding information of stuff that he thought could probably maybe be true to Ogrim. And then Ogrim was like, well, obviously he's either got inside information or he's using his fancy mind powers or something, but he is some sort of an ally, so I should keep him around. So as a show of loyalty to Ogrim, Gul'dan promised him an army of the undead who would be loyal only to him. So Gul'dan tried again and again to raise the dead, but continually failed until Cho'Gall aided him in the ritual. They killed all the other necrolytes and trapped their souls in green crystals. Gul'dan then bound the souls to the bodies of slain Stormwind guards, creating the very first Death Knights. So this is where Garrett gets super excited.
Yes. And one of those was Terran Gorefiend.
Yes, actually, he is the first Death Knight.
Yep.
Which is super freaking cool.
Yep.
So Ogrim left Gul'dan to his own devices because he was becoming just increasingly preoccupied with the war. They were pushing up towards Lordaeron. And so Ogrim finally just said, okay, Gul'dan, you just do whatever you want. Like, I'm too busy for you, which big mistake. But anyways, so Gul'dan was basically completely unconcerned with the eventual outcome of the war. He was just completely consumed by his thirst for power. So he abandoned the Horde on the eve of their attack on the human capital of Lordaeron. He took the combined forces of his Stormreaver clan and the Twilight's Hammer clans and set out to find the Tomb of Sargeras, which was the location of the godlike power that had been promised to him by Medivh. With almost half of his force suddenly missing, Ogrim was forced to retreat, which gave the Alliance of Lordaeron time to regroup, costing the Horde the war. Gul'dan and his forces did end up locating the tomb and raised it from the ocean floor. So this is the Tomb of Sargeras that we are going to be raiding in 7.2. And as they entered, Gul'dan and his men were torn to shreds by the demons who resided within the crypt. The remainder of the two clans were slaughtered when Ogrim and the rest of the Horde caught up to them. And Gul'dan's memories and power survived as part of a spell that he cast as he died, remaining contained within his skull, which became an object of great power and that you hear a lot about if you guys are familiar with the story of Illidan.
And also, hilariously, we could probably do an entire episode about Gul'dan's skull.
We could,
just
actually.
His freaking skull, Jocelyn.
Yeah, his skull gets passed around between quite a lot of powers of Azeroth over time. And it's got to be kind of freaky, right? Like being new Gul'dan and coming to Azeroth and everyone talking about how powerful your skull is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And he's like, wait, what? Huh?
Yeah. So, Gul'dan's skull itself ends up in the hands of, I believe, Maeve and Illidan and Deathwing and Turalyon and Khadgar.
His head, his lifeless head, gets passed around between many parties.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you guys haven't listened to it, I think I've told you to listen to it 3 or 4 times now, but the audiobook drama that they put out, The Tomb of Sargeras, at the beginning of Legion, is basically Gul'dan finding out this story from Khadgar. So there's some other really cool stuff mixed in there, but basically it's revealed to new Gul'dan that original Gul'dan was actually betrayed by Kil'jaeden. And so new Gul'dan has Kil'jaeden in his head, basically saying, yeah, old Gul'dan made the mistake of going after power because the Horde was supposed to be slaves and the instrument of the Burning Legion in order to weaken Azeroth so that the Legion could invade. So Gul'dan, kind of unknowingly, but because he had his crazy thirst for power, basically defied the Legion, not knowing it, by going to the Tomb of Sargeras, which is why he was ripped apart by demons. So in the end, he betrayed the Horde, and then the Burning Legion in turn betrayed him. So it's actually quite an interesting story. Original Gul'dan is an interesting character, and I think it's cool that he's back, and it's cool that we get to actually fight him in Warcraft. But I think Original Gul'dan has a more interesting story, I think, than New Gul'dan, current Gul'dan. I don't.
No, yeah, I did. Gul'dan Light, Gul'dan.
Gul'dan 2.0?
New Gul'dan, like new Pepsi? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. The all the retconning and the like multiple timeline things, it makes the, as you can see here, kind of on display in our lore talk here, is it makes it muddy, right? Like we're not sure now what is canon anymore. Like I get the Harbinger short. I understand. Like Chatroom was like, "Oh, that's about New Gul'dan," but is it? Shouldn't New Gul'dan's backstory be exactly the same up until the point that Garrosh intervenes?
Exactly.
Because the other thing that could explain that is a multiple universe theory, that kind of stuff, which is fine, but they never actually address that or bring that up in World of Warcraft itself, saying, "Oh, well, this Gul'dan is also actually slightly different." The way they kind of sold it was, no, this is the exact same cast of characters as we knew them up until the point Orc Hitler shows up and tells them don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. It's very muddy, and then it's also the timeline of Gul'dan and the character of Gul'dan also shows up in the Warcraft movie. So then there's also the Warcraft movie universe that kind of throws a wrench in it too.
Yeah.
And in general, the Warcraft books at least have kind of stayed within and filled out and kind of held up the World of Warcraft lore. But the movie is its kind of own entire universe. So there's many different versions of Gul'dan, and they are similar, but they're definitely not all the same. So this was as close as I could keep it to World of Warcraft lore for original Gul'dan.
Yeah.
Or Gul'dan Prime works as well.
Yeah, because kind of up until the point of Warlords of Draenor, this is the story for Gul'dan.
Yes, exactly.
After Warlords, after the Warcraft movie, things get less cut and dry. Mm-hmm. So, I'm still really hoping that we get a sequel to the Warcraft movie.
Me too. I think, though I enjoyed the Warcraft movie, but I feel like there are a lot more interesting Warcraft stories to be told. And I think that they needed to tell the story that they told in order to introduce people who are not familiar with Warcraft to the different races, to the lore, to the kind of set piece that starts everything off. So I think it was the story that they had to tell as the first movie, but there's so much more that, like, I mean, we're doing literally a big chunk of every episode on the story and background of World of Warcraft. And so I just, there's so much more to tell other than just the first war, which we're not even through in the
No, it didn't even get through all of the first war in the movie. Yeah, I mean, I think that was their hope, right? I think their hope was that the movie was successful enough that they could justify creating an ongoing Warcraft universe in film. That's everyone's goal right now. Even Fast and the Furious, for some bizarre reason, has become a cinematic universe. Not complaining, by the way. I love those movies, and I'm going to keep seeing them until I'm dead. But, I mean, Marvel, right? Marvel is the thing everyone's trying to achieve. Warcraft has it. It's absolutely there. I 100% agree with you. It's there. I think the thing holding it back is the success of the movie in general, right? And while Warcraft did go on to make, I believe, the most money of any video game movie in history, it still didn't do that well over here. It did pretty damn good in China. Did not do particularly well in the States.
I just really hope they stick with it, because I think the Marvel movie universe, and we're going way off on a tangent here, but the Marvel movie universe, basically, they earned it, right? Like the first Marvel movies were very similar to the Warcraft movie in that it was like moderately successful, like made the most money, but of a comic book movie. Like it had that asterisk next to it sort of thing. So they kind of they made a lot of movies, they set up a lot of background, and then they made Avengers, right? And then Avengers was super popular, and they earned that. And I think that that's why DC is currently struggling, because they do things like Suicide Squad without earning it. So I think that that's just kind of where Marvel is at, and I think that Warcraft is doing it right, by starting with the basics and saying, this is our universe, we're going to build on this. And I think you have to earn it before you go for like the Lich King, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing with Marvel though is even though like they did all that setup, the movies that were setting it up still made a ton of money, like an absolute ton.
But again, over time, right? Like it was like the first one was kind of like, oh hey, this is actually pretty good, and then word of mouth kind of spread, and I think it's just kind of that they've got to earn it, and I hope that they get the go ahead to make another one.
Yeah, yeah. So I agree. I would like to see more. I want that. I want that. There's so many movie universes, and Warcraft's one of them I would like to see. So
agree.
Let's do it. Anyways, let's move on and take a couple emails before we wrap this episode up. You can send your emails to... I need to update the show notes because we have an actual email that makes sense for the podcast. Now, you can send your podcast. You can send your email to FAZpodcast@gmail.com. That is FAZpodcast@gmail.com. So go and do that. Cody writes in and says, Dear Jocelyn and Garrett, hi there. I've been listening since episode 7, and I have really been enjoying it. I haven't played since Kata, and my current computer can't run Legion. Really? You can turn those settings pretty far down. But I have been wanting to start playing again. I know when it comes to picking your main that it should be based on what feels the best, but as someone who can't try out any of the classes, is there a race/class you'd suggest trying first? I've been thinking a Tauren Pally, a Pandaren Shaman, and a Troll Druid. Am I in the right direction? When I started in Vanilla, I mained a Tauren Arms Warrior with my eyes on wielding the Ashbringer, and now that Ret Pallies get it as their legendary and Taurens can be Paladins, I can hear the chimes of fate ringing. Thanks in advance. All right, Cody. Listen up, buddy, because I'm about to be a hypocrite. I talk a lot of smack about the Tauren. They're not my jam. I think there's cooler lore in World of Warcraft, but that being said, damn, they look cool. Damn it, they look cool. If like Ashbringer's your jam, man, if you're like, ooh, Ashbringer's just such a cool weapon, I want to wield that. Tauren is, I believe, arguably the correct, in just cool factor, the correct race to roll because you'll just have the biggest Ashbringer possible.
That is true. You can measure your Ashbringer against all other Ashbringers, and you will come out on top.
Yep, exactly. Unless it's another Tauren, and then you'll just be both like, yeah, big Ashbringer club, high five, with your 3 fingers. They have 3 fingers, right?
But if you're looking for the thing is like racials don't have that much of an impact anymore. I think in the past, and I'm saying this as someone who didn't play that far in the past, but I think that they used to be way more impactful. So you would see a lot of a certain race class combination, but I think now they're just a little bit less impactful if you're looking for specifically PvE content.
Yeah.
So you can basically roll any race or class that you want to in any combination of those. But I would make the argument for Blood Elf Pallies because in lore, they have a really cool beginning with the whole just Blood Knights. So I think they have a really cool backstory, and you see some of the backstory as part of the not Blood Elf, or the Paladin Order Hall. So you get to see some of that Blood Knight backstory in there, and you get to meet Lady Liadrin, and it's really cool. So I would make the argument if you want to be a pally that and I'm assuming since you gave us all Horde side, you're looking for a Horde side character. So I would make the argument for the Blood Elves. But if you're on the Alliance side, I think I would make the argument probably for a human paladin, just because there's so many iconic lore characters that are human paladins. I think, there's not too much of an argument for anyone else. They are a human order as in lore. So I think that that's probably the best. If you're looking for shamans, then I think I just rolled a Pandaren shaman. So I think that's a perfectly valid decision.
Shaman, I think lore-wise lines up with the MO of a lot more races, especially Tauren, for the example. I mean, they're very in tune with nature and that type of stuff. It makes sense for them to be a shaman. It makes sense for orcs to be shaman because of, all the lore we just talked about. Exactly,
yeah. So shaman, for my orcs are my kind of overall, I don't really like the aesthetic of orcs, so I don't play orcs, so that's kind of why I went panda. But you're right, Tauren would make good shamans, but orcs are kind of the go-to shamanistic race. It's, their whole background, their lore story. Trolls, I think, would be hunters. as my kind of go-to. I think taurens make good druids, but trolls make good hunters, at least in my opinion. They're very well known as, hunters and very, can trolls be rogues?
Yes.
I think so. Yes.
Yes.
Because they're also very sneaky, right? So
yeah, but they're also very shamanistic in ways. They're very there's definitely a magic side to them, considering how many freaking troll mojos and troll fetishes I have had to go and fetch in my my time leveling up in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I feel like that feels a little more shaman-y to me than magey. It's more
Yeah,
of a
no, you're right.
because the Loa that they actually worship are wild gods, right?
Yes.
So I mean they scream shaman more than arcane. If you're looking for mages, then you're looking at your blood elves and your humans.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean at the end of the day, getting back to his leading question, I mean, you can make whatever you want work.
Yes,
like if lore is a thing for you, you can write that story. If lore isn't a thing for you, then who cares? Just go for what's coolest for you. I mean, I rolled a oh my goodness, my brain. I had a Tauren warrior for a long time just because Titan Grip had come out, and I was like, I just want the two biggest weapons I can find in the game, and I just want everyone to run scared. And then I realized arms was better for PvP, and I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe, all right, not as cool. It's just one big giant weapon instead of two.
Arms Warrior, I said this last night in a raid, Arms Warrior makes me laugh every time I hear it because I just picture a warrior with more arms than everybody else. Yep.
Pretty much.
That's what's in my head. Is just a Tauren with 6 arms, all holding a sword, going Arms Warrior.
Jocelyn.
I know. That's my dark moment. There you go.
Well played. Well,
the next email comes to us from Martin. Says, I loved hearing more about Prophet Velen and the Draenei. I've been playing a Draenei Paladin for over 10 years. Happy birthday, Burning Crusade. And my knowledge of Draenei history, it was pretty much summed up by /silly. How exactly do you crash into a planet? That's what I want to know. Now I have a backstory, and Prophet Velen is more than a mildly annoying Legion scenario. My knowledge of gnomes is just as limited. Clearly, we had some sort of little accident in Nomergon, and for some reason, we still shout for Nomergon, when any sensible, taller person would just hope that everyone would forget Nomergon and the glowing green stuff over there. I have learned that being pummeled by a blunt instrument can be pretty painful, but as a gnome, I have not learned any of our no doubt noble and inspiring history. Is there a noble and inspiring gnomish lore? Thanks for making WoW even more fun for me. So, Martin, basically, the story of Nomergon is quite kind of short. Get it? Short? Gnomes? Basically, in Nomergon, there was an invasion of Trogs, and they released a whole bunch of toxic gas to attempt to kill the Trogs, but they just ended up kind of getting irradiated and more powerful, and at the same time, you kind of killed a lot of your own gnomes. So
it's okay, Jocelyn. You can say farts. You can say that the gnomes had to leave their own... Why have I given Tauren so much crap when gnomes clearly have the lamest story in all of the World of Warcraft?
I mean, I feel bad for gnomes because it was a last-ditch effort. It was a very poor decision by Gelbin Mekatork, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think that's who it was. And he was trying to save the city, and essentially it completely and utterly backfired. So then, basically the dwarves that took them in over in Ironforge. So that's why you guys have a little section of Ironforge now, is the dwarves took pity on you and brought you in because you guys are both descended from the same Titan Forged. So I think we talked about it a little bit with the Titans in an earlier episode, but basically the dwarves came from the Earthen and the gnomes are descended from the Mechagnomes. Shockingly.
Yep.
So basically what happened was both the Earthen and the Mechagnomes were given the curse of flesh and eventually turned into the gnomes and the dwarves. So you guys have kind of a shared Titan Forged heritage there. So the dwarves took you in Ironforged, and then that's why Nomergon became a dungeon, because the dwarves actually sent adventurers in to try to reclaim Nomergon from the irradiated Trogs. So that's your backstory of gnomes and Nomergon in, Joss does 2-minute tips of lore.
Yes. Yeah. So awesome. In the awesome column, you're literally a descendant of Titans. In the extremely lame column, you were run out of your capital from fart creatures.
Hey, dude, Trogs rule. That's a Hearthstone reference for any of you guys who don't play Hearthstone.
Oh man, Trogs.
Yeah.
That's I of course I jest gnome population. I'm glad you're a part of the World of Warcraft, just like Tauren. Like when I talk about like what I like and I dislike, when I'm talking about something I dislike, like it's gnomes or it's Tauren, I'm talking about something like it kind of just isn't as cool to me as other things in a giant game that I think is one of the coolest games ever. It's not like, oh, this is the worst. Why is this in the game? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just like, no, this is like schoolyard fighting with your friend when you're like 9 years old. It's like, no, blood elves are cooler. That is as far as I am taking all of this. I am being real immature. So there you go. Come at me, gnomes.
Probably take like 8 of them.
I don't know.
You're a really tall dude.
I don't actually, in their defense, in the Broken Shore cinematic, Mechatork looks like a right badass in his giant mechano suit. It is so cool. Like, that's the side of gnomes I love. Just like the side of Tauren I love are like the brutish warriors of Tauren.
So that is kind of the other piece of lore behind the gnomes, and is basically that they're very handy. That's they're builders. That's what they do, and that comes from the fact that they descended from the mechagnomes. So they love building things. They love tinkering, and they're I think that the head of the gnomes is even called like the High Tinker. So he's basically the guy that makes the best stuff. So they are very, very handy with all of the kind of creations and engineering things that you can do in World of Warcraft. So you're right. He does look pretty badass.
Yeah. And my favorite, historically, my favorite profession in World of Warcraft has always been engineering, because I just think it's the most fun. And I love that exists within this fantasy setting. I know that type of stuff also exists in Warhammer, so don't write me, Warhammer nerds. I'm aware that type of stuff exists there too. But it's one of my favorite flavors in this particular fantasy setting, and that if it weren't for gnomes and goblins, we wouldn't have that. So, rock on, short races. Very cool stuff. Again, you can send your emails to FAZpodcast@gmail.com, and that is going to bring us to the end of the 12th episode of For Azeroth. Keep those iTunes reviews coming, folks. It's still a relatively new show. We've only got 12 episodes under our belt, and 5-star reviews in the iTunes store help us a lot. So if you're an iTunes listener, you're liking what we're doing, and you want us to keep doing it, drop us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. Lefty711 is our only new 5-star review for this week, so thank you so much, Lefty. And we have officially thanked everyone who has dropped us a review so far. You can subscribe to For Azeroth on iTunes, youtube.com/amovetv, or just about anywhere else podcasts can be found. You can catch us live Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time right here on twitch.tv/amovetv or on alphageekmedia.com. But other than that, Joss, where can folks find your work?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. That's JOCE Plays. You can also find me right here on twitch.tv/amovetv every Wednesday night for my general gaming podcast called The Gamers Inn.
Nice. Folks, you can find me on Twitter at Garrett Art. I have a graphic design portfolio over at nomoonart.com, and every other damn podcast I do, of which there are many at this point, can be found over at amove.tv. I just put out a new Angry Nerd. That's my solo show. Go and check that one out. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of For Azeroth. I look forward to raiding with you tomorrow night, Jocelyn. Hopefully seeing some improved numbers so that I don't incur the wrath of meanie hardcore cutthroat raid leader Jocelyn.
Oh, yeah. And, I will bring down that hammer, dude.
You're a paladin. You're holy. You do bring down hammers. That phrase is accurate with your roleplay, so congratulations.
I know.
Cool. Well, I'm a Death Knight, so I will just kill you and move on with my life.
Oh.
There we go. And only to find out that, like, maybe you're still alive, like the dwarf or whatever.
Like the dwarf or whatever.
Dwarf or whatever. It was Muradin, right?
Sit down.
It was Muradin who wasn't a paladin, so it's not a perfect analogy
Yeah.
there. Okay, cool. I've completely ruined it. I've exposed that I don't know everything by heart about Arthas's backstory. And on that rather nerdy note, we shall bring this episode of For Azeroth to a close. Good luck and have fun, everyone.